We wanted to create a community that comes together, comes and sees what's happening, and that they can live that past feeling.
What we are doing is a kind of another level of excavation, because we are doing kind of micro excavation on object.
Hello and welcome to Qatar 365. I'm Laila Humaira, and on this episode, we dig deep into Qatar's efforts at preserving key heritage sites and natural landscapes and meet those taking care of the country's national treasures. But first, at the very northern tip of Qatar, a plan is underway to turn an old abandoned settlement into a modern tourist attraction. As Charlotte Dubensky finds out, it takes a village to transform the old ruins while staying true to its original form. Once a thriving settlement, Al Mafia was abandoned around 50 years ago. Since then, the former buildings have been left to the elements. Well, now that's all about to change. Using the bones of what's already available, Qatar Museums has grand plans to rejuvenate this village and turn it once again into a centre of cultural importance. Al Mafia will be developed into a tourist attraction with cultural and heritage eco-friendly activities. It will also boast an open-air museum. The design team behind bringing this vision into existence say that they're drawing on the village's history for inspiration.
What we want to achieve is to bring back the community life to this deserted village. Each house has its unique form and its unique character, so we wanted them to have a sense of that belonging to that place and take that journey.
The decision to redevelop the site wasn't made lightly.
My first priority is to make sure that archaeology is not damaged, because a lot of these villages are sitting on top of or next to older ruins which are fully archaeological, they're fully below ground. So we need to make sure that those areas are protected. There are some sites where they would not be appropriate. There are some buildings where it would not be appropriate. In other cases, it was not done, then these things would just collapse anyway and disappear and become fully archaeological. So you might as well make use of them, and you might as well make use of them in a way that makes the best of the natural environment and the archaeological remains that surround them.
One of the key considerations of this development is choosing the right materials for the reconstruction.
During restoration, we will salvage what we are able to salvage. What we cannot use, we will repurpose as accessories like an ornament or a vase.
The natural surroundings of the village have been a huge source of inspiration for the designers.
The inspiration of Al Mafia project is derived from its existing finishes, natural atmosphere or environment of it. One of those things is flower, the sea lavender or khuzam al-bahr, which we used as an inspiration to create the branding and the color scheme. For example, any new material introduced into the project will blend into the natural context of it, such as the terrazzo flooring design, which is inspired by the texture of the sand around it.
Work is set to start on making those plans a reality, breathing new life into Al Mafia whilst also giving people a real glimpse into the traditional lives of generations past. We continue our journey, not far from Al Mafia, to where the land meets the sea. Just like other low-lying countries at risk due to rising sea levels, Qatar's landscape is also susceptible to the effects of global warming. I tagged along with Dr. Issam Heggie, Chief Scientist at QEHBKU, on one of his recent field trips to find out why climate change efforts are so vital for Qatar's shores and borders. So, Dr. Heggie, why have we come to this part of Qatar to understand more about the effects of climate change?
So we're here to see climate change in action. For many people, they think that climate change happens in other places, like in the North Pole and the South Pole, where ice is melting and all of that. And they tend to think that the desert, just because it's flat, there's nothing happening here. While if we just look here, we see this communication tower that was built not on the sea, it was deep inland, like the one we see here, about a football field away, at least from the waterfront. And now we see the water has reached the base of the communication tower and pushing it to fall little by little into the water.
So you're saying that in a couple of years' time, what will happen to the spot that we're standing on right now?
So if we're looking to that rate, we're talking about anything from 2 meters to 7 meters a year of the sea advancing. So this means in 5 years, this spot where we are in will not be even there.
Now, Dr. Heggie, why have we come to this place?
We've come here to show an important phenomenon, where in fact we are below sea level rise when we came from here, from the car, and you just walk and you don't see the sea line, you don't see the coastline, and then you walk a couple of meters and suddenly you see the sea. And the main reason is just because we are below sea level. As you can see, this area is higher, and just looking 50 meters from here, the car where it is, about half a football field, the car is below where we are. So that shows something very important, that a significant area of Qatar is slightly below the sea level, which make Qatar Peninsula highly vulnerable for sea level rise.
And what can be done to stop this? Or to make sure that it doesn't change Qatar's landscape any more than it already has?
The one way that we can mitigate this is through science and technology. Climate change is not a fatality. Science can change our ability to mitigate climate change. It can only improve it.
A big part of Qatar's preservation and conservation efforts is also restoring ancient artifacts found by archaeological teams at dig sites across the country and beyond. And that takes us here to the Museum of Islamic Arts in the heart of the capital, Doha. Now, we've gotten special access to meet the team that prepares these historical objects to be display ready.
A leather book binding from 13th century Andalusia. A 9th century sword from the Khazar Khaganate period. And this monumental stucco panel from 12th century Iran. These are just some of the thousands of historical objects housed at the Museum of Islamic Art. It's a miracle that these artifacts have lasted through centuries, and the museum takes great care in making sure they'll last for generations to come.
Whether it's glass, wood, textiles, metals, or paper, there is a conservator who specializes in taking care of each artifact. These experts help ensure a safe preservation of these historical objects, whether they're on display or in storage.
But behind the spotlight of the galleries is where history comes alive. Serhat Karakaya is a metals conservator at the museum. Today, he's showing a restoration project he recently completed.
This is a copper alloy bird figure dated to 11th to 12th century AD, and it is most probably used for storing the liquids, or could be decorative as well. Before I start treatments, it was in really poor condition with a really deep crack on the neck. Maybe you can still see it here.
The process was long and time-consuming, but the piece is now ready to be presented to the hundreds of thousands of people who walk through the museum's galleries.
The biggest improvement actually with the decoration, as you see here, it was not so visible because of the corrosion. So after the conservation treatment, now these yellow decorations are more visible. It looks nicer.
In a different part of the lab, stone and wood conservator Stefan Masarovic is scrutinizing a piece he just received.
The object you see in front of me, it's a big dish made of wood. It comes from Gujarat, from India. The interesting thing about this object is that it's a wooden painted dish. You can see the layer of polychromy. There are about 4 colors I could see until now. The orange one, red, green, black.
Working with wood can be challenging, especially when it's a race against nature.
Wood as an organic material can decay much faster as the unorganic materials, and it's very sensitive to humidity. It can be attacked by the molds or insects, wood-eating insects, and that's why it can get a damage that is irreversible.
Meanwhile, paper and book conservator Reem Al-Khuzay is putting her expert touch on a folio from Iran and inspecting a one-of-a-kind manuscript.
It's made of leather from outside, the binding, and the inside we have it on parchment. Parchment, it's animal skin. So it's from 13th century, from South Africa. In that period, they start to use a lot of animal skin and write all the Quran, let's say, or for example, this book about the stars. So science, mathematics, a lot of things on parchment.
Back at Serhat's lab, he's scrutinizing another object to restore. This is an arrow from early 20th century England. Treasures like these may have been discovered by archaeological teams in the field, but Serhat believes conservators like him also play a critical role in unraveling the meaning and purpose of each object.
What we are doing is a kind of another level of excavation, because we are doing kind of micro excavation on object to be able to provide more information to the related departments, archaeologists, art historians, and also for conservation.
It's been fun bringing you on a journey across Qatar to learn more about how the country is keeping its historical sites and objects alive, but also preserving its natural landscapes. And that's all the time we have for now. Do check out Euronews.com and connect with us through our hashtag. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Qatar 365.